This is Power Hour with Gabriella Power.
Hello and welcome to Power Hour. I'm Gabriella Power. Thank you for joining us. It's been 1 year and 1 week since Donald Trump won the US election against Kamala Harris. And you'd remember, for weeks, for months, we saw sports stars, college students, TV hosts, all busting out the iconic Trump dance moves, celebrating his epic political comeback. And the dancing has not stopped. Over the weekends, Lions players, they did just that after scoring a touchdown.
Goff on the slant to St. Brown. He is in for a Lions touchdown.
There it is. They love President Trump, and tickets for Sunday's game reportedly sold out after Donald Trump's attendance was confirmed. Now, coming up on the show, Chuck Schumer has been humiliated as the US government shutdown finally comes to an end.
I think Chuck Schumer, his days are over. If he cannot keep his caucus together, he needs to go.
Also, Trump threatens to sue the BBC for $1 billion over its fake news reports. And Sydney Sweeney refuses to apologise to the woke lefties over her successful jeans commercial.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Finally, after 6 weeks of the US government's longest ever shutdown, it looks set to come to an end after Democrats caved in the Senate. Joining us now is Centre of the American Experiment President John Hinderaker. John, this deal could have been done well over a month ago. Several Democrats now agreeing to reopen the government without extending healthcare subsidies. And this has been humiliating for Chuck Schumer, who's had a meltdown over this in the Senate. Take a look.
Premiums will spike by thousands of dollars a month. Millions will lose insurance. Democrats have sounded the alarm. We have demanded for months to meet with the Republican leadership. But Republican leaders refuse to even discuss the issue, let alone negotiate it. We've asked them to meet in the summer and throughout the shutdown. To this day, Republicans still say no. We asked President Trump to step in and meet with us to deliver lower health care for Americans, and instead, Donald Trump has taken the American people hostage, from cutting off food aid to hungry families and vets and seniors and kids, to manufacturing flight cancellations, to cutting off home heating aid, while he builds a billion-dollar ballroom with gold-plated toilets. Therefore, I must vote no. This health care crisis is so severe.
John, I want to get your thoughts on the Democrats here. Have they just been playing politics this whole time?
Well, they have been, Gabriella. What's so funny about that, Chuck Schumer there was play acting. He's the minority leader. He negotiated this agreement, and then he gets up and he denounces it and he votes against it after he has lined up 8 Senate Democrats who are willing to cast votes in favor of it so that they can finally break the Democrats' filibuster. That whole thing on Schumer's part was play acting because he is concerned about a primary challenge from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in 2028. But you're right, Gabriella, the whole thing was about politics. The Democrats in the end got nothing, but what they did achieve was that they got their base fired up. And the shutdown did succeed in accomplishing that. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again prior to the midterm elections next year.
Well, we are seeing some Democrats and progressives just furious about the moves to reopen the government. Here's one Democrat that went on MSNBC to say he's perplexed after Democrats voted to reopen the government.
Why now would Democrats in the Senate decide to lay down their arms, potentially end this shutdown, when the terms that are being offered by Republicans don't seem to have changed?
I can't explain it because, to be frank, to me, it makes absolutely no sense. I am completely perplexed by today's developments, or really the developments of the last few hours.
And let's look at the commentary from the women on The View calling for Chuck Schumer to go.
Shame on the Democrats for even believing that the Republicans will, even vote on it. There's no guarantee in this New Deal that there's going to be a vote. There's no even commitment to have a vote. So the bottom line is the Democrats went into this after a blue wave out of the American people saying we do want the opposition. The working people want the Democratic Party to fight for them. And now they just caved and surrendered. I think Chuck Schumer, his days are over. If he cannot keep his caucus together, he needs to go. He needs to be replaced.
Yeah, she's not happy. Seeing plenty of people, plenty of lefties really losing it, John.
Well, of course, Schumer did keep his caucus together. He was involved in negotiating this deal, undoubtedly took the lead and negotiated the deal, and they found 8 Democrats willing to vote yes to end the filibuster so that the government can reopen. It was never viable for the Democrats to keep the government shut down forever. You can't do that. At some point, they had to come crawling back, and that's what happened last night.
Let's talk about the BBC, which is in big trouble. The BBC's Director General Tim Davie and CEO Deborah Turness have quit after producing essentially fake news by misleading viewers by editing Donald Trump's January 6th speech to make it look like he was encouraging people to riot at the Capitol in 2021. I mean, you look at what went to air in the original speech, it was just appalling. It was doctored. Now, Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social, the top people in the BBC, including Tim Davie, the boss, are all quitting/fired because they were caught doctoring my very good, perfect speech of January 6th. These are very dishonest people, I should say, who tried to step on the scales of a presidential election. On top of everything else, they're from a foreign country, one that many consider our #1 ally. He's not the only one being outraged by this. Plenty of people are suggesting that this should be the end of the BBC. I don't agree with that, but British taxpayers, they should not be paying for fake news. Former UK Prime Minister Liz Truss wrote on X, "I'm glad the US President and the rest of the world are seeing the BBC for what it is. Its failure to tell the truth on everything from transgender ideology to economics to Gaza has done huge damage to politics and government in this country. This should be the end of nationalised broadcasting." Now, Donald Trump has warned the BBC it must retract, it must apologise, or face a $1 billion lawsuit. He's certainly not afraid to pursue lawsuits. John, what do you make of what's happened here?
Well, I don't understand why in Great Britain they have government-financed news. I mean, that seems like an inherently terrible idea. And everybody has known for many years about the left-wing bias of the BBC. We see it over and over again. We certainly saw it here in the way they doctored the speech that President Trump gave on January 6, 2021. So I, for one, would love to see the British government simply stop supporting the BBC. If people want to support the BBC themselves in whatever fashion, through advertising or subscriptions or whatever, that's fine. But I think the BBC has forfeited any entitlement to be supported by the British government because of its obvious biases.
Yeah, it's interesting. Looking at ratings, GB News has overtaken the BBC as Britain's most watched news channel, which suggests that a lot of people are switching off. But earlier this year, you'd probably remember this BBC presenter made a clarification on air that then went viral online. Let's take a look.
London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine has released research which says that nearly 600 heat-related deaths are expected in the UK. Malcolm Mystery, who was involved in the research, says that the aged, pregnant people, women, and those with pre-existing health conditions need to take precautions.
Now, this went viral. Plenty of people applauding her for the correction. But, John, apparently it's offensive to say pregnant women. The BBC announced that she broke rules because she, quote, expressed a controversial view about trans people. I mean, what a joke.
Well, Gabriella, here's the thing. The BBC's practice of saying pregnant people instead of women, that expresses their opinion. So
Correct.
They're angry at her because she supposedly expressed an opinion on air. No, they're the ones expressing the pro-trans opinion, just like they constantly express opinions against President Trump, against Israel, and so forth. This is another classic instance.
Yeah, it really is. Now, let's talk about Donald Trump. He's vowed to give most Americans a $2,000 payment as a tariff dividend. Here is the president.
We're going to issue a dividend to our middle income people and lower income people of about $2,000.
John, it does appear as though Donald Trump is losing support over the economy. Plenty of people are certainly still struggling, and tariffs are controversial. But what do you make of this announcement?
Well, I'm not holding my breath waiting for a $2,000 check for a lot of reasons. One, I don't know that the numbers add up. Trump talks about trillions of dollars. He's including there all of the investment that other countries are promising to make in the United States. But of course, none of that has actually happened yet. The tariffs might bring in as much as $500 billion a year, but the case that was argued in the Supreme Court just a few days ago could put most of those tariffs out of business. People think it's likely that the Supreme Court may rule that most of Trump's tariffs are not, in fact, authorized by the legislation that Congress had passed. So I'm not so sure anybody is going to be seeing those $2,000 checks anytime soon.
Okay. Well, Nancy Pelosi has announced that she'll be stepping down at the next election. Her term ends in January 2027. And John, she's leaving Congress a very wealthy woman. The New York Post has reported that her and her husband made at least $130 million in stock profits over the course of her 37 years in Congress, which shows a staggering return of almost 17,000%, which is extraordinary, especially compared to the 2,300% for the Dow Jones over those years. What are your thoughts on Nancy Pelosi and how she's leaving Congress?
Well, what was striking to me about that is that she made so much of her money on option trading. Option trading, of course, is highly leveraged, creates a tremendous opportunity either to make or to lose a lot of money. And if you were engaging in insider trading, that would be the way to do it. Trade in options to maximize your returns. And of course, the federal government does many things that impact industries, that impact corporations. And as the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi was in a terrific position to know what the government was likely to do in the future, particularly because she was one of the people making those decisions. So if she decided to engage in option trading based on actions that she knew the federal government was likely to take, that is just unbelievably corrupt. I don't know whether she did that or not, but for many years, there has been a lot of suspicion over Nancy Pelosi's very lucky history as a stock trader.
Incredibly lucky indeed. Finally, before I let you go, Syria's president has met with US President Donald Trump at the White House for unprecedented talks after Washington removed him from a terrorism blacklist. Now, he previously had a $10 million bounty on his head, and now he's being treated as an ally after he's announced reforms. Now, he spoke with Fox News this morning.
In the last 60 years, Syria was isolated from the rest of the world, and there was a cutoff between the United States and Syria. And this is the first time a Syrian president visits the White House since the establishment of Syria in the 40s of the last century. And so after the fall of the former regime, Syria has entered into a new era, and this will build on a new strategy with the United States, especially with the United States.
John, there are plenty of concerns about this meeting due to his past connections with Al-Qaeda. What do you make of this? I suppose Trump is giving him a chance, seeing as he's announced reforms. What do you make of the meeting?
Well, international relations can make for strange bedfellows. I think the Trump administration is being realistic in recognizing the fact that this guy and his colleagues are now running the nation of Syria, which is an important country, and they have to deal with them. The other thing going on here, of course, is that Syria was Iran's most important ally. The Trump administration obviously would like to reorient Syria to ally itself with the West and not with Iran. So the fact that he used to be a terrorist obviously is an unpleasant reality, but it's one that the administration has to deal with.
John Hinderaka, Center of the American Experiment President, thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour. We really appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
If you're a homeowner in America, you need to listen to this. The FBI has been warning about a type of real estate fraud on the rise called title theft, and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on a single document, use a fake notary stamp and file it with the county. And just like that, on record, they own your home. Using your ownership, they can take out loans against your equity or even sell your property. And you won't know about it until foreclosure or collection notices show up in the mail. That's why I've partnered with Home Title Lock so you can protect your equity and find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code POWER at hometitlelock.com and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. That's 24/7 monitoring of your title records, urgent alerts to any changes, and if fraud occurs, their US-based restoration team will spend up to $1 million to fix it. Don't be a victim. Protect your equity today. That's hometitlelock.com, promo code POWER, or use the link below. It's time for Media Meltdowns, and Jimmy Kimmel's Trump-hating wife, Molly McGinney, wants you to know she's angry. Why? Because Donald Trump is president.
And I'm angry all the time, which isn't healthy at all. But I personalize everything now. When I see these terrible stories every day, I'm immediately mad at certain aunts, uncles, cousins who put him in power. And it's really hard. And
They're all nodding.
I wish I could deprogram myself in some way.
Just look at them nodding in awe. Now, Molly is also the head writer and executive producer of Jimmy Kimmel Live, which tells you a lot about her. Now, she's gone on this podcast, which is seriously called We Can Do Hard Things. And it's so Meghan Markle of her. I mean, look at Jimmy and Molly. Their net worth is estimated to be around $50 million, but they want you to listen to just how hard done by they are. And they're still upset that after a year has passed, Donald Trump won, and they're still angry about it. In fact, Molly has opened up about how badly she begged and begged her family members not to vote for Donald Trump, to the point she's now had to cut ties with her family.
I've sent many emails to family right before the election saying, I'm begging you, here's the 10 reasons not to vote for this guy. Please don't. And I either got ignored by 90% of them or got truly insane responses from a few.
Yeah, she goes on to encourage other families to cut off Trump-supporting family members or friends. And what do the podcast hosts have to say? Well, I think what Molly is doing is phenomenal.
That's so honest, and I feel like no one has ever said, at least to me directly,
no one said that,
the thing that, because that happens to me too. When when a headline comes about a certain thing, I get mad at personal people too. I think
really?
Yes. Like if there's an anti-queer thing that comes out, it's like our brains have to focus on people because otherwise it's just this big boogeyman thing.
Brains can't focus, imploding. What Molly said was groundbreaking according to those podcast hosts, and they're now bonding over how triggered they are by the millions of people that voted for Donald Trump and that they know some of those people are related to some of those people. And if this podcast couldn't be any more insufferable, Jimmy Kimmel, well, he speaks out and he tries to blame Donald Trump's win on people being lied to, not from him, but from other more successful media outlets.
If those outlets didn't exist, we wouldn't have this. I think people would evaluate things based on facts, but it's just...
They have Cousin Molly's Instagram, and I give them facts every day, and they just seem to be ignoring them, and that's what bothers me. Okay? So they can watch Fox News all day, but the hard part for me, it's a strange position to be in, is you personally know two humans in your life you're related to. Our jobs here, we don't tell lies. We tell jokes, but we are literally scouring the news every day.
I mean, just a few months ago, Jimmy Kimmel was lying about Charlie Kirk's murder and then pretended to cry when he was brought back on air and he offered no apology. Now let's check in on the charming Jennifer Welch. She's starting to become a regular on this Media Meltdown segment because just weeks after applauding a woman who celebrated the murder of Charlie Kirk, she's now complaining that there are plenty of Republicans who are people of faith and have a strong connection with the divine.
I think a lot of the people that are involved in this movement are either psychopaths, sociopaths, they like it. I'm talking about like Stephen Miller, right? And then you've got people that are religious addicts. And you guys, that is a real thing. Like somebody can be an alcoholic, somebody can be a drug addict. A lot of people are religious addicts, and you can Google it and read about it. And these religious addicts, like all addiction, like all addicts, sabotage things. Their default setting is to break things and create collateral damage. And I think even on the Supreme Court, we have some religious addicts. And I think in the administration, we have a ton of religious addicts, Mike Johnson, et cetera, Marco Rubio. And they think, okay, I'm doing a lot of bad in my private life. I guarantee you Sam Alito's Google search history is full of a lot of all right? Has to be.
Yeah, the party of the left, party of inclusion. Here was Jennifer Welch on the night of Mamdani's electoral win, claiming that Americans have no culture except for multiculturalism.
Americans have no culture except for multiculturalism. Well said. And we need to teach people how to embrace that. These prestige white people need to learn how to embrace it.
Joining us now is media strategist for MAHA PAC, Caitlin Sinclair. Caitlin, it is wonderful to see you again. Sorry for putting you through that, but there's a lot to react to. I mean, hearing from not only Jimmy Kimmel, that's painful enough, but his wife now encouraging people to cut off family members if they're Republicans. And of course, as we're getting closer to Thanksgiving, we're probably going to be hearing a lot more of that. Plenty of lefties crying into their phones, calling to boycott the holidays as they did last year. And then, of course, Jennifer Welch, I mean, mocking faith and then claiming that America has no culture except for multiculturalism. What did you make of that, Caitlin?
Yeah, well, first, let me get my little tiny violin, Gabriella, to cry a sob story for these privileged women. My question for Jimmy Kimmel's wife, when she brings up family values as her reason for Trump derangement syndrome, is what about all of the values from the conservative side that you seem to ignore? Does she value her kids being exposed to drag queens? Does she feel okay with women being forced to compete against men in sports? Does she not value female privacy, Gabriella? So she's okay with females, children, and women being exposed to grown men in locker rooms? I think I need to better understand what her family values are, so-called family values, because if you continue, these women continue, also with Jennifer Welch, to value politics over your family, then I actually think you're doing the whole family values thing wrong. And these women seem to want to attack any values or morals on the conservative side. I'm no therapist, but I don't know, that might be a sign of projection. I know a lot of therapists like to use that word.
100%. Now, the lefties are triggered once again because actress Sydney Sweeney is refusing to apologise for taking part in a successful jeans commercial. Sydney Sweeney, of course, sat down with GQ for an interview. She was there to promote her new movie, Christie, and she was basically asked if she would like to explain herself. Would she like to apologise to the lefty lunatics who were crying on camera, calling Sydney Sweeney a Nazi for taking part in a commercial?
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Absolutely brilliant response from Sydney Sweeney. And how painful is that, journalist? I just want to give you the opportunity to apologise or to explain yourself.
You have to do it in the voice, Gabriella. You have to do it in her annoying voice.
I know, it's too much. It's absolutely too much. Caitlin, how brilliant was Sydney Sweeney?
I think that was a black belt performance. And what makes it so brilliant, and I think this is an important topic right now in our current culture, is talking about media literacy, because media literacy in 2025 is almost like something you have to take a master class in. And it means really knowing when a question is a setup. And you see Sydney sitting there so composed, but there's almost this moment where a switch goes off and you can pick up on it, of course, for us in the media, where she can tell this is a setup, and choosing not to step inside it. That is the power. And I think this is a lesson for anyone right now that's ever answering a question or ever getting a message from someone in the media or someone that calls himself a so-called journalist. And just in this world where we're chronically online, the interviewer's tone is on purpose. It's very soft, it's sympathetic, it's even I'm on your side sort of tone. And that is a classic setup. So the closer for me, the brilliance of all of this was I will be heard. Not I have to explain myself, not I'll defend myself or I'll have to defend my image. It was I will be heard. So don't let these people decide your narrative. I think we're going to see a lot more of this, actually, a lot more of these Sydney Sweeney performances because people are fed up with the so-called journalists and the lamestream leftists trying to always spin the narrative. And I think the skill is answering well, not falling into the trap. So
I couldn't agree with you more. Now we have to talk about what's happened in New York City. I mean, last week, New Yorkers elected socialists around Mamdani as mayor of New York City. The rest of the world, and certainly over here in Australia, people are watching this horrified by the results and, you know, plenty of concerns around what's going to happen to New York City. Now in Florida, a mayor over there is telling New York businesses to come to Florida as Mamdani is set to pursue a policy agenda that hinges on raising corporate taxes, hiking up taxes on the rich. Also in Connecticut, according to brokers over there, real estate is booming in parts as New Yorkers are looking to snap up homes, many holding fears over a potential economic downturn and city safety. Talk to us, Caitlin, about what you're seeing in New York following Mamdani's win.
Well, they're calling this the Mamdani migration, Gabriella. And of course, right, we have a lot of the wealthy class of New York, the affluent people that for some time leading up to this election were logically thinking about their next step. We're logically thinking about, oh, should I go to my second or third home? But that's not the biggest problem here. A bit more concerning for all your viewers following what we're facing here in New York is those that are walking away from deals, businesses that are now backing off on investments and saying no and not investing in property here or not bringing their business here or had deals that were about to go through and they're now walking away. That's the more concerning part than the wealthy people that are going to their second homes right now. So Mr. Mamdani has a big problem on his hands because guess what? Who's about to pay for all of his free stuff? He is now, I would argue, Florida's real estate salesman of 2025. I don't know if that was really his goal, but congrats to him because we are facing an uphill battle here in New York City, and there were so many concerns on multiple levels. But I would argue that the major part of this story and more concerning is the future investments that are now leaving this city.
Yeah, 100%. Looking ahead at the midterm elections and the MAHA movement, there are reports that the MAHA movement is going to be key in really boosting support for Republicans, as of course there is support with what RFK Jr. is doing when it comes to processed food, such as removing additives like dyes and excess sugar. Can you talk to us about the MAHA movement and what we're going to see as we inch closer, I should say, towards the midterms?
Yeah, I believe it or not, those midterms are right around the corner. And I think right now we're at an interesting intersection where we realize what matters to the left, what matters to conservatives, but what matters to both of us is health. So if anything, as we near closer and closer to midterms, this is the first movement in a long time where we have the potential to kind of depolarize the country. I think making America healthy again in this health movement can actually serve as the bridge to bring people together. And it's Republicans, it's our president, Donald Trump, it's RFK, and it's many Republicans that recognize this. And I think the left tends to focus on being angry and criticizing, but making America healthy again is not a red versus blue issue. At the end of the day, nobody wants a sick America. And in order to make America great again, we have to make America healthy again. So expect to see a lot of emphasis on the major wins coming from the MAHA movement and expect the MAHA movement to actually serve as that bridge, Gabriella.
And you're right about the left focusing on being angry. I mean, just listen to Jimmy Kimmel's wife. She'll tell you about it. MAHA PAC media strategist Caitlin Sinclair, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Joining us now is Dr. Rion Al, Director at Matt Ventures. Rion, thank you so much for joining us.
Good to be here.
Great to see you in the Sydney studio. Now, you are our AI expert, so I want to get your thoughts on what's happening with AI. And there are, of course, fears over this AI bubble. There are concerns that have been heightened, I suppose, last week after tech shares slumped. And investors are warning that a correction could tank top AI stocks, even further. What are your thoughts on AI, where it's going, and if we're in a bubble?
Well, if you were an investor anytime in the last year and you've been in the AI stocks, Gabriella, you're a very happy person. But all good shows eventually come to an end, and people are worried that the show is starting to come to an end now. And so it's been provoked by a few things. I mean, when you have stocks worth trillions of dollars going up and doubling, and you have companies reaching NVIDIA at $5 trillion, you've never had a company that worth that much. People start to get worried very naturally. And more recently, a guy named Michael Burry, who was most famously known for The Big Short, where he shorted the housing market in 2008, actually went all in on shorts on two of the biggest AI companies. So people are getting really worried and thinking, is this the end for the AI industry as not forever, but just like the dot-com bubble, for a few years, is everything overblown? And that's where people are getting a little bit scared. I would say it's one of those technologies that will change the world.
Yeah.
It's not one of those technologies that are going to go up in a straight line. No one can time the market, but if you just sort of stay in there for the longer term, I think it's more than likely that everything's going to be okay in the long run.
Yeah, and as someone who's not an AI expert, I do tend to agree with you. Look, before we talk about what's happening in America, let's talk about what's happening here in Australia, because Australia's world first social media ban for under 16, that kicks in less than a month. But it's not clear around the ID that we will need to access social media platforms. So from December 10, the government will be forcing social media companies to block under 16s from plenty of social media platforms, including Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. And the government insists that platforms will not be allowed to require government IDs to verify age and must instead use reasonable alternatives. But the public still has very little clarity on the issue of IDs and personal data storage around how this is going to work. I mean, do you have concerns about this social media ban and the IDs that we're going to need to use and that they'll be able to have to force us to hand over?
Well, I think we all respect the initiative behind the idea behind the ban. We want to protect the kids, obviously, and social media is a dangerous place. But implementation is just as important as the actual idea of the ban itself. And if you really want to be world leading and world first, you need to make sure these things are ironed out and you come with a clear plan. You don't want to say, look, we're going to get things wrong, but it's going to eventually work itself out. These are the lives of a lot of people that you're going to be affecting, not just the children, but everyone who has to verify their age online. And there have been reports that have come out where some of these other mechanisms that are not digital ID mechanisms are just not that accurate. They've used like 2D face masks and put them in front of their faces, and they've verified them as older than a certain age. They've used a bunch of different techniques. So the question is, do you use a less secure technique that will have some flaw to it, or do you use digital ID, in which case you're exposing a lot of Australians to privacy concerns and security breaches that they don't want to be a part of.
No, absolutely.
A lot of people
not.
support the ban, but most Australians are really worried about how their data will be secure, as anyone reasonably would be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very concerning thing when you start talking about digital IDs, but I want to talk to you about America. New York City's around Mamdani has had his historic election win, and it sparked a lot of conversation around I suppose where the Democrats are heading, where Gen Z voters are heading, and there are suggestions that this could be a turning point for voters and Gen Z voters. What do you make of the results?
I think it's one that the Democrats needed, quite frankly, because if you've looked at them in the last 6 months, they've really been languishing. And Donald Trump has not really had much competition from the Democrats. And so this is probably the biggest win for the progressive movement in America in quite a long time, along the lines of it not just being a win for New York, but you've got someone who, if you put aside the policies, is a fairly objectively charismatic, good on social media, able to say what he thinks, and is able to say a lot of things that other politicians would lose votes over, but say it with almost that Trump effect. And then be able to overcome that sort of expectation of what you should and should not do. And so that's why I'm not surprised that the Mamdani effect, or I guess you should call it the Trump effect if he was the first one to do it, is going to sweep across a lot of these seats. You'll have younger challengers coming in across the nation, I think, across both Republican and Democrat sides. And you have to ask, is that necessarily a bad thing? Probably not. And I would extend that to say in Australia, would that be a bad thing? I mean, you look at the state of some of the leaders that we've got. I would argue a reset and a new wave of people coming in with new ideas, and also an ability to communicate those ideas effectively is exactly what the Western world in every nation, including America and Australia, it definitely needs. So it's going to be interesting to see whether this Mamdani effect works, not just for the Democrats, but for the Republicans and for every other party there is. Yeah.
It's interesting because Donald Trump, when he won the election last year, had a huge amount of support from Gen Z voters.
Yeah.
Now, new polling suggests that Trump's support among Gen Z voters has actually slipped in recent months. A new YouGov Economist poll found that 25% of Gen Z respondents approve of Trump's performance, which is a decline from September. Well, what do you make of those results?
Well, I'll speak as a member of this community, I suppose, in saying that I think that Gen Z people love the talk. They love the movement. They love the belief in something bigger than themselves. And they love the hope that someone can do what they say. And politics, unfortunately, is an over-talk and under-deliver in reality. So you have, for example, President Trump, who went out and has done executive orders galore, has actually delivered on a lot of the things that he did promise.
Extraordinary.
And he's delivered on a lot for his voters and for what the voters wanted. But he hasn't delivered on some of the things that, that simply can't be. I mean, you can't reduce prices, really. And a lot of younger people don't sort of understand the difficulty in the economy. I mean, you want to try and make sure the inflation slows down, but you can't reduce prices. You can't turn back the clock on previous policies, and you can't, on day one, turn an entire economy around. Younger people love the idea of instantly having a leader who can turn an entire country around. It's not a reality. It takes time. And that's why every time a new leader is elected, you have this slump from Gen Z because they think, where's everything that was promised now, right here? And it's probably because of social media. And it's to round it up. It's probably because of the short attention spans that they all and we all have. They want to be a part of a movement. They want to be a part of something that will fix their issues now. It's not a reality, and that's why you see that slump off every single time someone's elected off the back of a Gen Z vote.
Dr. Rian Al, Director at Matt Ventures, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Gabby.
Joining us now is skynews.com.au columnist Louise Roberts. Louise, it's great to see you again.
Great to see you as always, Gabriella.
Now, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, formerly known as Prince Andrew, is reportedly under investigation by British authorities and could face jail time. Historian Andrew Lowney made claims suggesting that Andrew engaged in misconduct both financially and within the royal household. And he says that since Andrew's been removed from power, there's been more and more information being revealed, with former palace staff no longer afraid to actually speak out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think the information from Andrew Lowney is absolutely damning, and it just shows that it's complete open season on the man who used to be known as Prince Andrew. If household staff who were previously told to keep quiet are now feeling emboldened to actually spill the beans. And I was interested to see when he talks about misconduct within the household, what he's referring to is an allegation that Andrew brought prostitutes into the palace and his mother knew about it and turned a blind eye, and staff were told not to say anything. And in particular, royal protection officers were told if they complained or flagged it, they'd be moved to a less glamorous post somewhere away from the royal household. So I think the feeling is that also the financial impropriety, that's what they'll probably go for. Charges relating to perhaps possible misuse of funds to do with the Royal Lodge, or also I think what will come under focus is his role as a trade envoy when he was in the UK, and he went to Libya and he went to other countries as well where there were sort of questionable regimes, and he built quite deep relationships with them. So it'll be interesting to see what they go for and if they actually do lay any charges.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be another embarrassing week for Andrew this week, with UK Parliament holding a debate examining Andrew's connections to Jeffrey Epstein and his financial arrangements at Royal Lodge. And this is really the first time that MPs can directly scrutinise the former royal, and officials have confirmed because Andrew no longer enjoys this protection from common criticism after losing his royal status.
That's right. He's a commoner. He's, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. He's not the prince anymore. So whatever they ask about him or talk about him in the House of Commons is now on public record, or will be on public record. And that is something I think the palace has avoided assiduously for many years, is any type of paper trail. And what you find often is that if MPs ask for questions or investigations, they often then rope the police in, and that will open up Andrew, of course, to the potential of prosecution or criminal charges. And again, to Andrew Lowney, his view is that he will be investigated, he will be charged, he could go to jail, and I think, to use his words, he's toast, because everything is sort of come home to roost in a way for him. All the work that was done to paper over some of his behaviour is now fully exposed. And William and Charles want nothing to do with him in that respect. Andrew now has to answer for Andrew.
Well, Meghan Markle is allegedly very worried that Prince William could move to strip her of her Duchess of Sussex title when he becomes monarch. Of course, Harry and Meghan remain the Duke and Duchess of Sussex despite giving up their royal duties 5 years ago and then going on to publicly slam the monarchy. However, this recent decision to strip Prince Andrew and Fergie of their royal titles has reportedly sent a chill through Montecito, with the Sussexes fearing that they could be next. If I was Meghan, I'd be pretty worried too, because she's still happy to use the Duchess of Sussex title.
Absolutely.
I mean, she uses it on her website as she tries to sell her candles and her jams.
Her whole global brand is based on being the Duchess of Sussex. It's not about being a former actress, although apparently she's now filming a new TV series or movie or something. So if that's stripped, if she loses her title, and indeed if Prince Harry does as well, they become ordinary celebrities. And when I mean ordinary celebrities in Hollywood, they're in the same pool fighting for the same opportunities, less resourced and less well connected than their celebrity chums like Oprah and people like that, Serena Williams and so forth. So it's a real issue for her because, having that royal cachet is what people like and what makes people buy her jam or her edible flowers or whatever it is on her website. So, it will be catastrophic for her if she loses her title. And I think it's ridiculous that the suggestion that somehow she would sue the future king about this and, this title is mine. It is not hers. It was given to her by an institution that she rejected and criticised heavily. So she's in no place to say, it's mine, I will sue you if you take it off me. And William, what William will do, he won't get his hands dirty. He'll just sign the letters patent, which disappears the title. He won't even have to talk to her about it.
I just think it's outrageous the way she uses the title, but then the way she rubbishes the royal family and promotes herself by talking about how difficult it was for her, that whole experience being a princess.
The victim complex.
Well, she's going back on Netflix next month. With Love, Meghan. It's back this time for a Christmas-themed special, which will premiere on December 3. What can we expect? Some more flower sprinkles?
Yes, probably more holly and red berry sprinkles, I think. There'll be lots of Christmas, my famous Christmas recipes, my Christmas traditions, how to get along with your family Christmas, or maybe not that, maybe she won't go there, I don't know, but it'll all be about, building traditions, I would imagine, with Lilibet and Archie as well, rather than the extended family or indeed her extended family beyond her mother, because she doesn't talk to anyone else. So it'd be interesting to see how she Christmases up the theme and which friends she gets into
so-called friends.
Yes, that's right. Which paid actors come in.
Yes, that she's known for 5 seconds.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, Harry and Meghan, they were spotted at this star-studded Hollywood gala just hours before heading to Kris Jenner's 70th birthday party at Jeff Bezos' mansion. So Meghan posted with Serena Williams at the Baby to Baby fundraiser in LA, which supports families in needs. And then later that night, the Sussexes joined the James Bond-themed celebrations for the Kardashian matriarch. What can you tell us about this?
Well, apparently this friendship between Serena Williams and the Bezos family and the Jenners, it dates back to about 2023 when they were all seen photographed at a Beyonce concert. So they've been all besties for at least 2 years, which in Hollywood terms is probably a long time. Probably in normal terms about 20 years. And so she went along to Serena's charity do and of course went to Chris's James Bond theme party. But I didn't see a lot of interaction between the Jenner tribe and Harry and Meghan. I noticed that Harry turned up with a poppy on, which I think is fabulous as well. But I did see that as a bit of a sign of him pining for his past and his, legacy as being a military man and things. So I felt a twinge of sadness, only very shortly, obviously, when I saw that. But yeah, they're still trying to move in those circles, and I don't think it's any coincidence that the Netflix project was announced at the same time as she was trying to cozy up to the Kardashian clan.
No, I think you're right. Strategic indeed. Now, Prince William, Princess Catherine, they reportedly have a deliberate plan for Prince George, and they're determined to raise George to be a strong future king, according to royal author Robert Jobson, and according to his new book, The Windsor Legacy. They want George to understand what is ahead, but of course live as a boy first. So what Prince William and Princess Catherine are doing to make their eldest son the future king, Prince George, strong, That is according to the royal biographer. What do you make of this plan?
Jobbo is very well sourced, so I think this is absolutely 100% true that they're very strategic about how they're raising George. They want him to be prepared for being king, but not overwhelmed by it. So they still want him to have a normal childhood as much as you can do in the royal family and develop a maturity which will allow him to cope with being king eventually one day. And I know in Jobbo's story, he was talking about how previous heirs have felt too rushed or too overburdened and therefore haven't been able to grow into the role. And I think William and Catherine are particularly careful not to allow that to happen to George. And also Catherine comes from a very tight-knit, close, warm, loving family. So she wants that replicated for her 3 children. And that's the best environment, I think, to basically grow and mature a young man who will one day be king and won't be resentful about doing it either.
Finally, Princess Anne is in Australia to mark 100 years since the formation of the Australian Defence Force. Louise, can you bring us up to speed on Princess Anne's visit here?
Yes, so she's been here for the 100th anniversary of the Royal Australian Corps of Signals. I had to get that name right. So it's got a very military theme to this, the 4-day tour. She's been in Sydney. She's going to a number of Remembrance Day services. She's met with Sam Mostyn, the Governor-General. So I think there has been some speculation about the timing of this, that it could be bad for her, but I disagree. I think it's a wonderful thing for the royal family to have their best brand ambassador beyond the King and obviously William and Catherine in Australia, showing that the reliable, dependable royals, that's actually what they are. They're not Andrew. These are the people who actually represent the monarchy. And of course, all the military people love seeing Anne because she is so authentic and very interested in the work that they do. Absolutely. And she's been, you know, involved with that Australian Defence Force for many years. So
we love having her here, absolutely, and I think you're so right. It's a great reflection of the royal family.
Oh, it really is, yeah. Good timing.
We're very excited to have her here. Yeah. Louise Roberts, thank you so much.
Good to see you.
That is Power Hour. Thank you for your company. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe to Sky News Australia on YouTube.